Good afternoon everybody, hello and welcome back to episode 2 of model making for mental health with Arcane Ritual miniatures. Today we're going to be building one of the two kits that comes in the Hasegawa box set. We're going to go for the Fireball SG. Enjoy the video guys, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. First thing we have to do is start cutting parts off the sprues. For that I'm going to use these lovely Citadel clippers. I like to keep my desk as tidy as possible, he says, with no sense of irony. Once I start cutting with these, I try and keep the flat side fairly close but not touching the part as I pull the pieces off of the sprue. I'd like to say a gigantic thank you very much to everybody who's hit the subscribe button on this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button if you like my content. It's just been an amazing response over the past 2 weeks, and let's keep it going. The kit does include some moulded plastic hoses like that little tiny one you can see right there. It doesn't include a few other little details that I'm going to be adding later on using a little bit of copper wire that I managed to scavenge from some old mains power cable. If you guys weren't aware, I do actually have a Patreon page as well. The link is in the description. Just so you guys know, all of the content I put up there is publicly available. The only thing the subscription fee really does is help support the channel. The more people I get help me out with that, the better the videos are going to get. Well, you've got to laugh, haven't you? Whee! There's a scalpel. It's time to start trimming up some of these parts. Do try to be really careful with the scalpels. It's really easy to gouge out big pieces of the model that you don't mean to. I'm just going around just nipping off some of the cut marks to get them as close as I can. Good old Tamiya extra thin cement. This stuff is magic in a bottle. It becomes an adhesive, it becomes a filler. You can always use it to get rid of some mould lines. It's good stuff. Just putting a few little dabs on one of the contact surfaces now, just enough to tack it together for the next step. So the two halves of the cockpit are now put together. Cockpit, torso, difficult to say. Give it a good old squeeze, look, there we go. Just make sure it's nice and solid. Then I get some Tamiya extra thin and I'm going to go over all of the seam lines just to help to fuse it together. That's it, just give it a good old squeeze there. If you squeeze it hard enough, you might see a little bit of molten plastic come out around the seam line, but that's great because that means you've got a good fusion there, and then you can go back and you can trim it back once it's all set up. Ah, well done, Matt. You might have made a slight mistake there because that part should have gone in a bit earlier. Let's see if I can line it up first time. Nope. Alright, split it a little bit. Just using the scalpel to pry it out and get it to pop into the right position. And then it's back on with the squeezing. It's always a good idea to make sure that you've got your legs and all their parts in the right spot before we carry on. Once again, a few little spots. Two halves go together. And squeeze. Really squeezing that. There we go. Now onto the other leg. Make sure you don't get any plastic glue on your fingers, because at this point you end up with fingerprints on the sides of your miniature. If you want to avoid that, you can wear nitrile gloves, they won't react the plastic glue. The soles of the feet just drop straight into place. Just like so. Putting the laser cannon together. A little bit off screen there. Well done, Matt. Okay, the other side is in. There we go. Again, a bit of a squeeze, just to hold it all together. Some of these parts do have a particular orientation around it, even though at first glance it looks like they don't. So do pay attention to the instruction manual while you're doing this. This one I decided to actually just place the parts together, then run the seam with the glue and then give it a press. So far this is exactly what I expected the build would be like, and yeah, just a nice, fun, relaxing process. I'm just trimming out some more parts there with the scalpel before I go into my emery boards. These come in a variety of grits. I like using these ones because they're just a good workhorse really, and they're spongy so they conform to curves. Nice thing with Tamiya extra thin is you can actually just place the part down on top and capillary action will suck it into place. Those are the sanding sponges I use. That's my trusty 200/400 grit sanding sponge. I like using the 400 grit side more than the 200 grit side, as you can probably tell by all the wear marks on it. It's just good enough to take away any things like mould lines and stuff that I might have missed. One of the issues I mentioned in the review was about silver plastic and how difficult it is to tell what work you're doing, especially when it comes down to sanding and mould line removal. That's why there's always an interim stage where we prime the miniatures before we finish. That way we can see if there are any mould lines left or any areas we need to fill. I'm using your finger test there just to see. Tidying up the back over the fuel tank cowling. Tamiya handy drill, wonderful bit of kit, and I got myself some nice little high-speed drill bits there as well. We can use this now to prepare some holes for some wiring. So I'm just drilling through the port there, which is actually in the instructions, and this extra one is a different drill hole. I'm just using a scalpel there to start a pilot hole before I actually get the drill into it. On the larger scale kits, the backs of the feet have little hoses. I'm just going to start, well, it appears I'm tidying up a bit more there, we go. I'm just going to start drilling the holes in the back to actually accept the hoses. We're going to bend those out of some really thin copper wire. The process is the same as it was on the torso. I'm using my scalpel just to tidy up a little bit and then drill out the pilot holes once I'm ready to do so. Obviously the hoses need to go somewhere, and it's just at this point on the underside of the leg armour. So again with the pilot holes, I'll do that on both legs. There comes the old handy drill. Just nipping some holes in the back there to accept the copper wire. So this is some thin gauge copper wire. I'm just wrapping it around the paintbrush handle here just to make a little coil. There's an antenna that sticks out the top of the Fireball's torso, but that tiny piece of plastic is very weak, so I used it as an excuse just to make a bit of extra detail, and it also supplies some stealth support. Checking the blade part of the antenna there, make sure it all lines up. Quick little test. A little bit too much wire there, so I'm just taking the tiniest amount off. Now obviously copper wire won't stick with Tamiya extra thin cement because it's for plastic only. In particular it works excellently on polystyrene. So we're going to use some super glue for this bit. Tiny little spot there just on top of the aerial stalk and also on the wire. Now the blade comes over. I opted not to drill into the bottom of the blade because it's so thin I think it would have popped out. But in the end it turned out that that was just enough just to hold it all up and support it quite nicely. Little tweak, just to make sure it sits square. Back a bit more. Perfect. Lovely. Alright, and that's the finished product when it comes to the torso. It's snip that bit off just to leave the original detail, or thumbs up. Now I'm going to prepare to make the hoses in the back of the heels of the boots that go up into the ankle part of the armour. Just a simple horseshoe on each one, just to get the rough shape right. The real shaping happens in a moment. That nice little Hasegawa plaque that comes with the kit makes a really good palette for super glue. However, be careful of the sides of your hands. The amount of times I stick these to myself and end up up-armouring myself by accident is quite seriously hilarious. Now I take the copper wire and I just dip both ends in and push them into the back of the feet. A spare bit of copper wire just to put some dabs on to secure them in place, and that's one of the feet done. And we just repeat the process again with the other wire, just double checking it's lined up correctly. Into the sockets. And a little DIY applicator there. And leave them set up for a few minutes. Lovely. Just refreshing my super glue there. As you can see, there's one of the legs ready to go. Snip the wire and I start to bend it up and roughly into the shape that I want it. As you can see, it just kind of goes up and over 390 degrees and tucks in a little bit. I line those two pieces up with the holes in the bottom of the leg armour and give it a wiggle and a push, and it's in place. Roughly position the foot where I want it. I've got some Tamiya extra thin just to lock the plastic parts in place. I'm just going to press and hold that bit of pressure, and that looks like it's good to go. I noticed a bit of roughness on the back of the leg from where I've been sanding, so I used some Tamiya extra thin brushed on to basically remelt the surface and make it smooth again. We've done both legs now, so now it's time to attach them to the torso. It's a very simple joint. There isn't really any posability in these kits, not without using putty and cutting joints and pinning them and all kinds of stuff. It's a bit beyond what I wanted to do with this particular build. This one's all about relaxing. Just a bit more tidy up while I'm there with the plastic glue. Now I've done the model maker's version of painting myself into a corner in a moment. First off, I have to stop and think about how I'm going to get these armour plates in without disturbing the legs. Bit of glue first, and hold them just right, and push the tabs into the slots just like that. That's the rear skirt attached. Now onto the front, which if I remember correctly was much more difficult, quite fiddly. Looks like I've got it. Excellent. Now a bit of plastic glue just to tidy up some more of the joints there. Test fitting the rocket boosters in now. Quite a nice fit. They do require a little bit of adjustment to get to sit right. If you do pick this kit up, don't do what I did and cut off the actual assembly tabs. They actually will, as you can see, like, I'm struggling to figure out where I'm going to put this into now. That's what I mean by about sort of building myself into a corner a little bit. There's a lot of wet glue on the go still. I'm just trying to find a good spot for it. Side skirts are going on now. All of that helps to hide some of those joins under there. It's a really good design for that. A bit more tidying up there. And this little guy's arm. Using the scalpel just to get rid of some rogue mould lines that I've spotted before I finish the assembly. You can also scrape with the scalpel, it's very good for getting rid of mould lines, and join the seam lines as well where you've glued things together. Quick polish up with the sanding board. Just attaching the hoses now. These were quite a challenge, and I think it's because unless you get the legs exactly where they should be, it can be quite difficult. But the nice thing about plastic is once you warm it up, it starts to get soft, so you can actually bend it around with your fingers and create a bit of friction there. It helps it actually fit correctly. See, this one's a bit tricky, it kept popping out. Just to make sure those hoses stay where I want them. I'm just going over them with a couple of dabs of super glue just to set it all up in place. I think that's looking like we might be there. Using a little bit of blue tack just to stand the miniature up. There we go. And coming in from the left we have the Prowler, which was the second one. That was built off screen, just so I can see what I'm doing. So finally, this is the finished miniature. It's all been put together. This one's in a fairly static pose. As you can tell right now, that silver plastic's really bouncing off the camera, so it's very difficult to see where your mould lines are. Just a couple of final adjustments on that booster there while the plastic was still soft. Pretty neat, right? One of the things I love about MaschinenKrieger is the fact that nothing has to be symmetrical, or even neat or tidy. We'll cover that in later videos. And there they are, both primed up, and I'm just having a look around them now. As you can see on the Prowler, I did spot a mould line that just needed a bit of work and a bit of attention on the front. Also up on the fuel tanks there, I did forget to cut some bits off from the sprue with a craft knife to tidy it up. But I can go back over that with some white primer again if I need to. Just looking around the back of this. There's a bit of roughness on the back there. I may or may not take that off before I start painting. I could turn it into some extra detail, like weld lines or, you know, some form of attachment points or whatever I decide really. Maybe a little bit of roughness there. I think I'll get rid of that in a moment. Just a nice little buffing motion there with the sanding stick, and that should get that sorted out. You can see where the mould line hasn't quite tidied up. Luckily we spotted it with a primer, so I may go back and finish that. around the bonus footage! Woo!